Good morning, everybody. 4 tragic dog deaths of the Lewiss family and what they taught me about program design. Many of us had dogs as kids, and those dogs died. But do we ever stop to think about the impact these experiences, these deaths had on our professional life? Probably not. But we never forget. And in my case, I'll never forget the 4 tragic, kind of dramatic, a little ridiculous, absolutely true stories of how the 4 dogs from my childhood died. When I think about them, I actually think they illustrate something. They illustrate 4 ways that our programs and the pillars of our programs, maybe you call them projects, can fail. What exactly do I mean by pillars? I am going to tell you about those 4 dogs, Trevor, Smokey, Pebbles, and Gigi. But let's get into the program. The pillars. What are they? Clinical excellence, research, education, and administration. And those apply no matter what your subject matter expertise. Anesthesia, emergency medicine, critical care, point-of-care ultrasound, simulation, toxicology. Check, check, 1, 2. We're good. I think you understand what I mean. Now, in my case, I'm an emergency physician, and my specialty is point-of-care ultrasound. So that's where most of my examples will come from. Clinical excellence, research, education, and administration. I'm going to ask you all to take a minute. Think about your program. Think about your project. Do you have pillars in place? Are they these 4? What might you want to work on? So by clinical excellence, I'm talking about what we do. This is what we do. Taking excellent care of patients, providing patient-centered care. From my perspective, this is setting everybody up for success. Having really well-trained residents, credentialed attendings, machinery that works, Wi-Fi that doesn't go down, software that's easy to use, a patient care record. This means documenting decreased complication rates from ultrasound-guided lines, fluorescenteses, paracenteses, or showing less ED to operating theater time when patients come in with blunt trauma and have a positive FAST exam, or pregnant patients presenting the first trimester, no intrauterine pregnancy on ultrasound, direct to the operating theater. Clinical excellence is often the first pillar we build. It's a strong pillar, it's visible, and it's very tangible. Research pillar. Not so easy for many of us. In fact, we actually avoid it, because I believe at the end of the day, many of us are not researchers. This requires writing grants to support your program, writing ethics and IRB applications, submitting abstracts, writing manuscripts, getting those rejected from journals, and then resubmitting them. But this is an important pillar. It establishes credibility locally, nationally, and internationally. It says, hey, I'm a team player. I've got skin in this game, and I want to help move my field forward. Education pillar. This also is what we do, passing knowledge on to others, teaching people what we know. This is an easier one. It's fun, it's interactive. This can be teaching real-time bedside when providing patient care, giving a lecture, running a workshop, discussing a case. Finally, the administration pillar. This might be a little less glamorous, a little less fun, but it's ever present and it's foundational. This is about making processes work, such as machinery to software to patient care record to patient care. Making relationships work, such as with radiology or information technology. Or making things work, working with an interdisciplinary team and other specialties to create a medical school curriculum for trainees. So I think you understand what I'm talking about now with pillars and program design. But as we know, things can go horribly wrong. Things can fall apart. And here's how. So it all started when my brother had been bitten by a dog a few times as a young kid. He was horribly afraid of them. My parents came up with a classic deconditioning solution: get a dog. So Trevor was a soft-coated Wheaten Terrier, and he lived 12 years. He ultimately died of cancer. The breed is prone to lymphoma. I was 17 years old and not yet trained in medicine. However, it was pretty clear the end was near. He had been healthy right up to the last few weeks. He was so weak he didn't sit up, he didn't eat, he didn't walk. It was a Saturday, and my parents had decided that after the weekend they would bring him to the veterinarian to be put to sleep. I was in the family room, my sister was there, and Trevor was lying on his side on a rug. His breathing was irregular and labored. All of a sudden, he stiffened up. His paws went straight out, his head raised, his neck extended, and he let out a final "arr," and he collapsed. My sister and I just looked at each other. From the kitchen, my father called, "What was that?" And I, in my foreshadow of an emergency physician's super cool voice, said, Dad, could you come here? I think Trevor just died. Cancer. Cancer killed Trevor. And in a similar way, there can be these silent, indolent, quiet processes that can be at work to contribute to the failure of your program. Cancer can be people, like your chairperson that doesn't really support ultrasound, doesn't perform it, doesn't teach it, doesn't speak up for you at faculty meeting. Cancer can be other colleagues who kind of roll the bedside ultrasound machine in, put the probe on the patient, but don't archive and save images, don't document in the chart, and make sure no one's watching. Cancer can be your machinery, if it sometimes works or if it never works. People just give up and stop looking for it. It could be the attitudes outside your department, such as other specialties telling you, oh, you can't bill for that because we perform that ultrasound. Or you can't perform ultrasound-guided nerve blocks for patient care because that's in our scope of practice, it's not in your scope of practice. So what do? Well, in the case of your chairperson or your colleagues, you can remind them that they're modeling for trainees. You can remind them of the literature and of policies that actually support the use of point-of-care ultrasound. If it's the language of your chairperson, you can talk about the potential revenue that that will bring to the department. In the case of machinery, you can get to know biomedical engineering, information technology, and your vendor. Set up a process so when things fail, there's a quick solution, and you can easily get lended equipment. In the case of other colleagues, start partnering with them, collaborate with them, invite them to come speak to your division, teach a workshop together, do research projects together. Don't let your program have these slow, failing, indolent processes. So Trevor was my brother's dog, and my sister wanted a dog. My parents heard about an old woman. She was looking to give away her dog. Smokey was a 3-kilo black Pomeranian. He had a habit of playing in our yard, never left our yard outside the house. Now up the street, we had a neighbor. The neighbor raised these 70-kilo, big white, hairy Hungarian Kuvas. They were very strong. The neighbor was in the habit of throwing a pebble at Smokey. That would scare him. He would run around to the back of the house, and there'd be no problems. Something different happened one day. The first thing I remember is my mother said to my father, "Matt, something's wrong. The neighbor just picked up Smokey's body, and Smokey wouldn't allow him to do that unless something happened." The next thing I remember is the neighbor called my father and asked him to meet him on the street. I ran upstairs to my bedroom because I knew my window would give me a front row seat to what was going to happen. The neighbor was speaking with my father, explaining what happened. He actually was crying, wiping away tears. He had taken a pebble, thrown it right at Smokey. It had hit Smokey square in the skull, killed him instantly. Instantly. Homicide. Because there are people and there are processes that do not want you to succeed and will actually contribute to the failure of your program. So infection control can come down and say you can no longer perform transvaginal pelvic ultrasounds because your process for sterilizing the intracavitary probe is not up to hospital standards. Recently, I had a meeting with a radiologist. He was quick to tell me about a bad case from the emergency department. The ED providers performed an ultrasound-guided paracentesis in the left upper quadrant. They hit the spleen, the patient bled, the patient died. Now, there were many pieces of the case that didn't make sense. So when I asked my ED colleagues about this, they said it actually was not performed by the ED providers, it was by another specialty service. So what do? Well, in the case of infection control, get to know your nurses. Join the interdisciplinary infection control team. Join the committee and ask to write the policy. Write the first draft of the policy that'll continue and allow the workflow you need in the emergency department as well as in the greater hospital system. In the case of that radiologist, I wrote him a very nice email. I titled it, "Great News." I told him, great news, that case you told me about, it actually was not the ED providers, it was another specialty service. I encouraged him to always send cases my way, to let me know when he heard about anything that was of concern. I told him I look forward to continued collaborations. Always be gracious and always be professional. This isn't just good life lessons, this is good lessons to prevent your program getting killed. So of course that neighbor felt horrible. He told my sister he would buy her any dog she wanted. She decided upon a Yorkshire Terrier, Pebbles. Yes, the dog was named Pebbles. And at the time, the thought was Flintstones, Pebbles and Bam Bam, were hair on the top of the head. It didn't even hit us that we named her after the weapon that had just killed Smokey. Super cute, 2 kilos, gentle, nice. It won't surprise you to know that she had a very short life. It was summertime, and we were staying at a beach cottage. I was inside the house looking out at the ocean. My sister came up with 2 friends, and this is what I saw. One friend's eyes popped out of her head. Another friend's jaw dropped. My sister opened her mouth, gasped, and covered it with both hands. There was Pebbles, hanging off the deck, suspended in midair, hung. Now, how can a smart dog who's very accustomed to a collar and to a leash and to a deck and to heights fall off and hang herself? We're not 100% sure, but I have my suspicions. Suicide. Because you can be the one killing your program. Do not be the architect of your own failure. For example, I was in New York City building a program, and one of my colleagues said to me, Resa, your team is doing great things, but you're not publishing. And you don't have any research projects that residents can join. He was right. I wasn't sure what to do, so I spoke to my friend, who happened to be the research director for the department. I asked him if he'd be willing to come to our meeting on a monthly basis. That one intervention completely revolutionized our productivity. We started having research projects so we could collaborate with other specialties and have trainees join. We started publishing manuscripts. Maybe you're more worried about the education pillar of your program. Well, time to join Twitter. Start reading blogs. Start pointing narrated lectures that are available and free on the internet out to your colleagues. Be a regular presence at faculty meetings. Teach cases, teach applications, hold workshops. Transform all of your 60-minute passive learning, death by PowerPoint lectures into 20-minute interactive, active learning lectures. Don't be the architect of your own failure. So the dog pound came to pick up Pebbles' body. My mom said, "That is it, no more small dogs." 4 days later, the pound called. They had found a puppy wandering in the cemetery. They asked my mom to come look at it. My mother and my sister came back with Gigi. Gigi was a 4-pound, 2-kilo, part poodle, part Lhasa Apso. By this point, I was well on my way for medical training. I was out of the house, and I would come back for visits. Over time, I saw Gigi age. First, she had breed-related skin tags. Then her eyes became opacified from cataracts. She started going to the bathroom all over the house, even though we did put her outside. She got to the point that she couldn't hear anything, and I saw this because when I'd go to pick her up, she would startle. She had no idea I was coming, and I kept accidentally kicking her because dogs usually move out of the way. She wasn't moving out of the way because she couldn't hear me. Finally, my mother said that her medical bills were getting very expensive. She was on 9 medications. One was for dementia, and the other was estrogen as a last attempt to try to cure her of her incontinence. At that point, I said to my mom, "Mom, it's time." Only the decisive emergency physician daughter could actually make such a pronouncement. My mother said to my father, "Matt, Resa says it's time." They brought her to the vet, and she was put to sleep. Old age. Because all of the pieces of our program is going to be subject to the wear and tear over time. It's therefore incumbent upon us to refresh, to renew, to update, and to innovate. How do we do this? Well, in addition to some of the other preventive measures we've discussed, I want to offer a few thoughts. Number one is people. Bring new people onto your team. Yes, trainees that have just completed training that have energy and enthusiasm and are very tech savvy, but also people with experience who can share with you their successes, their pearls, and their pitfalls, and give an outside view to your program. Next is read. Read yourself out of your deficiencies. Read about leadership, about program management, about change management, about difficult conversations, about holding them, but also how to conduct them well. Finally, connect. Connect with each other. Connect with each other on social media, but connect in person, whether it's at fantastic conferences like SMAC, or connect with other people in other departments and other disciplines. So you can think about where can I build things, what's eroding, and how can I help forward my specialty. Clinical excellence, research, education, and administration. 4 pillars of successful programs. Now remember, I asked you all to take a minute and think about your program or your project. I want you to do that again. What are you going to do? What are you going to build? What needs a little help? Four tragic dog deaths of the Lewiss family. They taught me the ways that programs can fail. Trevor, Smokey, Pebbles, and Gigi. I thank them, and I hope that you'd like to thank them too. Thank you very much.
Resa, thanks very much. Incredible talk. I'd imagine the dogs in the pet shop are terrified when they see you coming. Please pick a goldfish. Please pick a goldfish. Karen, any questions?
It's an announcement, so SMAC is now the leading topic in Ireland, so we'll see how many countries we can still conquer. Otherwise, compassion for you and other animal lovers, and also the question on how to build a great team.
I love that question. So part of the things that I offer to everybody are things I believe in. I have read books that probably many of you have read about team building. What do you do when you inherit team members that maybe you wouldn't have chosen yourself? And I think the signs of a true leader are, the characteristics of a leader are someone that's not threatened by others, that have strengths that you may not have. And I think if you know your strengths and you know your weaknesses, you seek to bring people onto your team that can fulfill the pieces that you consider your weaknesses or the places that you need to work on, like the research director example.